Today, we are diving into what might be the greatest adventure story ever told. It's got heroes, villains, impossible missions, world-changing power, and the craziest part? It all really happened. I mean, really think about that for a second. What if your best friend gave you a quest, not to just clean your room, but to change the entire world, to go everywhere and tell everyone a message that could change their lives forever? Would you do it? That's a pretty huge ask, right? Well, that's exactly where our story kicks off. And get this isn't some made-up fantasy or a cool comic book. These are true adventures, all written down in a book called The Acts of the Apostles. You could almost think of it as the logbook for the very first team of Christian superheroes. All right, so let's get into it. Every epic story has to start with a quest, right? And for these guys, their quest was, well, it was the biggest one in history. So, right after Jesus returned to heaven, he gave his friends, the apostles, their mission. It's known as the Great Commission, and wow, it was a big one. He basically said, I need you to tell everyone, everywhere, the good news. Simple, but huge. I mean, no pressure, right? The whole idea was they couldn't just sit around and wait for people to come to them. They had to go. So, you're probably thinking, how on earth could a little group of regular people pull that off? Well, they had a secret weapon, a helper. Jesus promised them the Holy Spirit, which was like getting a superpower straight from God. It gave them all the courage and ability they needed to do some truly amazing stuff. This is what leveled them up from just regular guys into total heroes. Okay, first up, let's meet hero number one. This is Peter, the brave leader of the whole crew. Now, Peter wasn't born a hero. He was just a fisherman. But once he was filled with the Holy Spirit, wow, he became so bold. One of his very first big adventures? He's at a temple gate and sees a man who couldn't walk. And not just for a little while, for 40 years, his whole life. So instead of just tossing him a coin, Peter offers him something way, way better. And boom, the guy leaps to his feet, totally healed. As you can imagine, everyone around them just lost their minds. They were completely amazed. But Peter was really quick to set the record straight. He was like, whoa, don't look at us. This wasn't our power. He made it super clear it was faith in Jesus that made the man strong. Of course, you know how it is. Being a hero can be dangerous. Not everyone was thrilled about these miracles. The same powerful leaders who were against Jesus now started coming after his followers. So Peter gets arrested. And we're not talking some small town jail. This was like a maximum security prison with soldiers guarding him. Escape looked, well, it looked impossible. But impossible is where these stories get really fun. Check this out. In the middle of the night, an angel shows up in a flash of bright light. Peter's just sleeping, and the angel has to wake him up. The second he stands up, his chains just fall off. Then they walk right past the sleeping guards. And the final obstacle, this huge iron gate, it just swings open all by itself. I mean, come on, how cool is that? Okay, Peter's story is incredible. But our next hero? Oh man. His story is one of the biggest plot twists of all time. We're talking a full-on villain to hero kind of story. Let me introduce you to a guy named Saul of Tarsus. And when we first meet him, he is not a good guy. Not at all. In fact, he was the believer's worst nightmare. This guy was on a mission to hunt down anyone who followed Jesus and stop them. The change in this guy was just night and day. On one hand, you have Saul, the guy who hunted down believers, and on the other, you have Paul, who became their greatest hero. So, what in the world happened? How does a person change that much? Well, it all went down on the road to a city called Damascus. Saul was actually on his way to arrest more believers when suddenly, this blinding light from heaven flashes all around him. He hears a voice, and in that single moment, his whole life gets flipped upside down. His heart, his mission, even his name. Saul the villain becomes Paul the hero. So, with a brand new name and a totally new purpose, Paul basically becomes hero number 2, the world traveler. He takes off on these epic journeys to share the good news with everyone. And listen to this list of his adventures, it's wild. In one city, Lystra, he heals a man who had never walked, just like Peter. Then, in that same city, his enemies attack him and leave him for dead, but he just gets back up. He survives a terrifying shipwreck out at sea. And then, he gets bitten by a poisonous snake and just shakes it off like it's nothing. The guy was unstoppable. His message was so powerful and his story so unbelievable that some people literally didn't know what to do with him. There's this one part where a Roman governor named Festus just screams at him, "Paul, you're out of your mind." But Paul wasn't fazed. He knew what he was talking about was real.
But here's the thing, and this is so important. Through all of it, the dangers, the shipwrecks, people calling him crazy, Paul never, ever gave up. He just kept going, traveling thousands and thousands of miles because he was so determined to complete his mission. A true hero.
And that brings us to a really interesting, kind of mysterious part of the whole book, the ending. Or maybe the fact that there isn't really an ending. It's super strange, right? The whole book is full of action, and then it just stops. It's a cliffhanger. We don't find out what happens to Paul in Rome. Now, you might think the last pages got ripped out, but nope, it was written that way on purpose. So why? Well, here's the big idea. The author knew that this thrilling story wasn't actually finished. It was left unfinished because each new generation gets to add its own chapter to the story. Think about it. The adventure was left open for a reason. It's to show us that the mission, the job of sharing love and hope, it didn't stop with Peter and Paul. It's still going on, right now, today, all around us. So the stories of these heroes show us that ordinary people can do absolutely extraordinary things. The great adventure continues. And that leaves us with just one last question. What part will you play in writing the next chapter?